Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this EDMO BELUX Lunch seminar. So for those of you who are joining for the first time, these lunch lectures are a recurring series of talks where professionals and researchers in the field of disinformation, online hate speech, and digitalization present their research. And after each talk, there will be time for some questions from the audience. So the idea is to really have interaction and to have the opportunity to discuss some of these topics in more detail. So today it's my honor to introduce as our main speaker Guillaume Kuster. He is the CEO of Check First, so an organization that focuses really on the development of different methods and software for the analysis of disinformation, algorithmic curation, also finding out how disinformation can be countered by using these different scientific methods. And for today, specifically, Guillaume will give us some insights into a recent investigation that has been conducted by Check First, specifically on a large-scale scam operation that took place on, well, at least took place through recruitment via Facebook ads. So without further ado, Guillaume, I would like to present you the opportunity to give us some insights into this investigation, and I would like to give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Tom, and hi to everybody. Thank you also to EDMO and the UDC Lab for the opportunity to talk about this investigation. So as Tom mentioned, I'm going to talk about an investigation we have published last June for a research period that was conducted during 2 weeks last May. So what are we going to talk about? So we named the investigation Facebook Hustles, and we think we've uncovered a wide network, intricate and quite elaborated network of scammers using Facebook ads and meta ads at large to promote fake websites that eventually link to products, so to say, which are scams. So we're talking specifically about that kind of ads that you might have seen popping into your feeds. So what we see here is an ad that was captured in Belgium on a Facebook feed, where the personality of Jeff Bezos is used against his will to promote a get-rich-quick scheme. And the interesting thing about that ad and all the ads that we have uncovered during the investigation is that they do lead to another impersonation, but this time of a media site. So when you click on this ad, you are not brought directly into a fake crypto get-rich-quick scam website, but you are led to still a fake website, but impersonating a media, an actual proper media brand in Europe, in that case in Belgium. So that's fake website, and they all have the same structure. They talk a little bit about that marvelous investment opportunity that you might miss on. They oftentimes use some other media brands like As Seen on RTL, RTBF, My TF1 in France, Metro, etc. And you would have some user testimonies on the right. And all links on these websites, they do lead to the actual scam. So what's interesting is how we got to learn about that. And don't be frightened. We are going to go through each part of that diagram. But over the course of just 2 weeks, we've uncovered more than 1,500 ads run by a network of Facebook pages that are controlled in some way or another by the scammers. And we've also found a large array of impersonated media organizations across essentially Europe. So if we start with the ads themselves, so these are the ads that were found on Facebook feeds, and through the help of the meta ad library, we could find some more. So we found 1,500 of those, and they kind of use the same logic. They would use a known public figure, either a politician, like you can see on the left, or a famous business person like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and people like that, or maybe footballers or public figures, people that would drag attention. And there would be some sort of a montage where there is some FOMO text, fear to miss out text, where people are urged to learn more about a marvelous opportunity they can get. So, looking at these ads, we can see these media figures, politicians, business people really be there, and it's always the same methodology in the target's language. So we have seen these ads in many different languages across Europe, and it seems that the scammers really were targeting the European market with these ads. Next, where do these ads come from? So what we've seen is that these ads were published from a network of, we've identified and counted 90 pages of legitimate Facebook pages that were the publishers of these ads. And what's interesting there is that these are not directly the scammers' pages, but they are controlled by the scammers, and we are going to talk a little bit more about that later on. So scammers operate a network of pages that were created by real people for legitimate interests. Could be artists. Mostly these are people from the creator economy, so small to medium scale artists, local artists, with follower counts ranging from not much to 2 million, with the bulk being in between 10,000 and 100,000. And what's interesting is these pages are not in Europe anymore. So scammers are purchasing ads through pages that are hosted geographically elsewhere than in the target markets, mostly South America, but also North America. And they were taken control of by the scammers into a quite intricate fashion we're going to develop. So each of these pages, they can run dozens, sometimes hundreds of ads as controlled, but not paid directly through these pages. So if you are one of the hacked people that has given control to the scammers of your Facebook page, you would not lose money. They would just use your reach. So that leads us to the domains. Where do the ads point to? So as mentioned, they point to fake websites. We've identified 160 different domains that were hosting these websites with always the same structure. So a fake article on the left, and on the right, some testimonies of pseudo customers that really got rich through the scheme. Again, these are some examples of the impersonations of the media brands. So they copy the site and put their content, and every link reaches to a scam operation, a data collection, private data collection website, basically, where you sign up for a fake service and then the scammers get to you. So these websites always share the same technique. We've identified over 60 media outlets worldwide that were impersonated with a really carbon copy of the websites, the fonts, the graphic design, everything to lead the viewer to believe that these websites are legitimate media websites talking about that fantastic opportunity to get rich. So there's a clear goal to deceive users and to entrust them into believing the existence of these fake products. What we also found, and one way to link all that operation together, is that these websites were using in some fashion the same main domain. So they would redirect through that same web domain, and by digging into that, we could identify the entire network. And since then, we've seen that scammers have been using another main domain at a certain point in time. So that's a little bit of the investigation process. So in total, we have found, as mentioned, more than 150 domains. We've listed where these domains were purchased from. So which are the registers, the date of purchase, the associated name servers. And we see that the scammers are quite, as usually they try to do, they're quite smart, because they hide themselves behind a service called Cloudflare. That means that we cannot get much information about the domains, but we still found some other providers like DigitalOcean, for instance, that can give us a little bit more information. So what is interesting legally there is that the scammers are using brands that they have no rights to use, and the registrar is supposed to prevent them from doing that. So it's against the terms of services of the registers to impersonate users. So that's already a violation of laws, but as described, as the operation is ongoing across continents and countries, our hypothesis is that scammers are betting onto the inability of police forces and judicial systems to coordinate their efforts across multiple countries and continents. So we've seen that they have some preferred registers, and 45% of the domains that they use are coming from name silo. Number 2 is as an English firm, PDR Limited, and then there's an array of different companies that they use to work. So when we look at the products being promoted through the fake news websites, we've identified also a sizable array of domains, 177 that were seen. And what we see for these fake products is it's basically a variation of the same site or technique. So there's always a title, a video, and essentially there's a form that invites the user to leave some personal data like name, country of residence, phone number, and things like that. So what happens then when you input your phone number? You would immediately, at least when we tested it through a sock puppet, we immediately got called back by a call center, probably in somewhere in Asia, Bangladesh probably, where a account manager would try to talk us into making a payment immediately for a service that is presented as an investment service. But when we digged into what they were trying to have us purchase, it was a series of training videos to learn how to invest. And it was not a one-time purchase, but a recurring monthly payment of €1,000 in our case. So that's the end game for the scammers, to collect money. And they were very insistent and called back many, many times after we closed the call, after spending some time. And there's a transcription of that call that is available in the full investigation that we will link into. So the question is, how does it work? What was the starting point for the operation? So that's when we get to talk about how scammers do acquire control of the Facebook pages that run the ads. So remember, we have these 90 pages of legitimate Facebook users, small artists or creators, that in some fashion gave control to the scammers. So what they would do is they would pose as, in that case, an artist named Tony Terry, who's a singer in the US. And they would contact the Facebook page owners asking them if they want to take part into a sponsored podcast paid by Nike, where they would get a $2,000 fee for appearing in the podcast and piggyback on Tony Terry's reputation and followership. And during the conversation, they set up a Zoom call. And during the Zoom call, they asked the victim to share their screen and to do a series of operations to supposedly join the podcast through Facebook. But in reality, what they do is the scammers are adding themselves as admins of that page and essentially depriving the original owner of any control whatsoever of the contents of the page or the ad purchase. In some cases, they would retain some control, but the scammers can operate. So we had several confirmations. The first one was from a Swedish cartoon artist that was scammed and had given his access through that social engineering trick. So what they do, they send an email and basically pose as an agent of Tony Terry and try to convince people to get onto a call. And it seems like they have different people being into conversation, sometimes with the camera on, and getting the operation ready to take over the Facebook page. So that leads us to the last part of the network that we've, which is another set of Facebook pages that are used for growth hacking, probably. So there are two sets of pages, one that publish content, like 15 pages that do publish wannabe viral videos, really clickbaity content. And these pieces of content are then reshared by another network, 440 pages. And these can be like hacked pages that were previously used to place ads, or some other pages that the scammers have control of. And these would just repost the original content posted by these 15 pages, probably to breed larger pages and then to get another page of the type of Tony Terry. So a recruitment page that can in turn be used to harvest some new Facebook pages and then run the ad. So you can see it's quite an elaborate operation, and all of that again is happening across the planet from different locations and using accounts created in other locations. So the types of content that these pages use for growth hacking are very clickbaity, like, you know, man eats snake type of stuff. And we can see that once the scammers take control of a Facebook page, they would keep some content that looks like something the original owner of the page would post, like profile pictures and being out having drinks and stuff and talking about their concerts, alongside the reposts of these clickbaity videos, again with a goal of growing the audience of these pages and maybe get a big enough page to convince other people to fall into the scam and give access to their Facebook pages controls. So we use CrowdTangle to analyze the spread of these pieces of content, and we found that more than 400 pages suddenly started sharing at the same time content from one of the 15 pages which publishes content, but it turns out that that guy that is depicted into that It's Alone account is a teenager that has a YouTube channel where he plays video games. So yeah, there's very little hints that would be a legitimate account in and of itself. Again, looking at the targets of the scammers to host the ads, we can see that a majority of the Facebook page owners are people coming from the gig economy in the arts, essentially. So creators or individuals. They also do target and use some institutions and brands. I'm going to show you a fun example of one we found from Spain today. They also sometimes use small businesses like a garage or something like that. Any page that would allow them to run ads from. So the entire reach of the network that we've uncovered last May, we estimate to be at least 10 million Facebook users. So that's quite a lot of people that might see ads that will lead eventually to a scam operation where if they put any private information in the forms, they would get a call by scammers. And if everything goes well from the scammer's perspective, lose money into the operation. So of course, we've got the question a lot of, do we have an estimation of how much money is involved? It's very difficult to say because we would have to know who put their information into the scammers' forms, which we cannot have access to. And also looking at public records of people testifying about having losing money. We found a few, notably in Sweden, but looking back at, well, typical human psychology, when you lose money into a scam, you don't brag about it. So estimating the amount of money that was collected or has been collected by the scammers is very difficult and cannot at least seriously be estimated. But given that the operation has a certain cost, because you have to remember that the hackers, they have to, well, the scammers, they have to purchase some domain names, they have different teams, people, content managers, they have people in call centers calling back the victims, they have people curating managing the network of pages, so it's quite labor intensive. That has a cost that cannot also be estimated, but there's probably enough money coming in to allow them to pay for all of that. There's also the possibility that they might use some stolen credit card numbers to pay for all of that. And without forgetting about the cost of ads themselves, because the funny thing about that story is that in our case, Meta is getting paid to help scammers scam people. So that is something also to keep in mind. So that's the network. You can delve into that investigation. It's on our website. We're going to share the link with you in the chat and probably through other fashions if you want to have a look at that. So as mentioned, we collected data for that specific investigation last May. And just to have a look this morning, we just tried to see if we could find any more. And yes, as you can see, just spending a few minutes into some of the Facebook feeds we use, we could find a wide array of exactly the same type of ads, sometimes with the same graphics, with the same arguments, basically get quick rich. Either that or some sort of a political scandal where you would have like an attention-grabbing title saying something in the lines of, he said, come and see what that politician said when he thought that the camera was not rolling. Is that the end of his career? That's the kind of clickbaity techniques that they use. So I promised you a well, fun, it depends for whom, but a curious thing that gives us hope to take further action onto these scammers operation. So what you're looking at now is the Facebook page of the Spanish Zaragoza Museum of Origami. And we found this morning that page is identified to have paid for this ad, which is one of the scammy ads. So You might have heard of the DSA. So that had some changes, so had some consequences into the different ad libraries that the platforms have to put up following the code of practice. And now in the ad libraries, you can find more information that we could access when we conducted the investigation last May. So we could see that scammers use different paying for different ad campaigns. So, and one of these was this museum in Zaragoza. Why does that make me think, or make us think, that it will provide us with more action? It's that everything here is in Europe. So the target country is Belgium. The paying entity is supposedly in Spain. So give us more hints or recommendations to take action. Speaking of goals of that investigation and recommendations, so what we did after the investigation, so we wanted to expose to Meta our findings. So we had a conversation with their teams. We contacted each and every news organization to let them know that their brand was being used illegally. Some of them were aware of that and had started some legal action, especially in France. Some others were not aware of it, and there was quite a wide coverage of that story at the beginning of the summer in a number of European countries, especially in Germany, in the Baltic, in Lithuania, and in other countries. We also have a portfolio talking about that. Of course, we wanted to publish it and share it with EDMO and our partners, and also make some policy recommendations in the investigation in and of itself. So all of that was rendered possible through our team at CheckFirst. I want to give a heads up to Nelly Payeux, Amaury Lesplingat, our CTO, and Francesco Poldi. And basically, you can find all of that on our website. So here's for the meat of the investigation, and I'm happy to answer your questions, may you have any.
So thank you very much, Guillaume, for this very interesting presentation, and especially for giving us some insights into the machinery that goes behind these scams. So I think it was really really nice to see how all these things work, and also very impressive how you uncovered this mechanism. So if people following along online have any questions, please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A window that you can see at the bottom of your screen. So there's a chat function for that. So maybe while we wait for questions to come in, I can start with a general question. So you demonstrate here is this very intricate, well, I think quite interesting mechanism whereby also like people's Facebook pages and so forth become hijacked, or websites become taken over by these scammers. So I had the impression from the results that you present that this is mainly done to gain a monetary, or to make a monetary profit somehow, that the eventual idea is to collect money. I was wondering if you have indications, or whether you could reflect on a scenario in which similar techniques are used for political gain. So you already hinted at the end of the talk a little bit at the idea that, okay, in order to attract people's attention, these ads that are being used, or these messages, they use political figures. But if you turn it around, like, are there more politically driven organizations or groups or individuals that would use similar mechanisms, not so much to just gain a profit, but to also then use the money to exert political influence, to promote candidates or parties or something like that? So I was just wondering if you have any thoughts or indications on that question.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Tom. So I think we're going to answer, both myself and Amory, our Chief Technical Officer here. You're right into saying that political figures were used for their clickbait potential and also for the scandal potential of that, and also right in identifying that the main goal of that operation is to collect money and not really have influence. There's something to be said about the usage of media brands and so that falls into the disinformation category, because not only are you using in a doppelganger style media brands to have a message reach your audience, but you are also spreading fake information, even if it's politically harmless. It's purely to collect money. There is a potential to use a similar technique for other goals. But Amory, what do you think about that?
During the investigation, we found one page where some ads were actually removed during the Brazilian elections. So we know that there is a link over there between some disinformation campaign during the Brazilian election and the page that have been used for spreading advertisements. The issue is that we face the limitation of the ads library, as we don't know what was behind those ads. We just know that the ad has been moderated by Facebook, but we don't know why exactly. We don't know what were those ads. So that's the issue, that if that happened and Facebook actually catch it before us, it's impossible for us to know what happened at the time. We just know that the ad has been moderated by Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much, indeed. And do you think that, and this is also something that was already hinted at the end of the talk, this could say body of legislation that is now being implemented or passed through the EU would somehow help you also as researchers to maybe dive a bit deeper into these questions, or at least offer a bit more transparency, like specifically in these cases where you see that somehow there was an intervention due to a certain ad that was then removed? Or do you think that that could be helpful now that these different well, Digital Services Act and so forth are now implemented, to maybe then not be somehow interrupted in the research, but maybe that would offer actually opportunities to dive deeper into those aspects?
One thing that is already more helpful today than what the situation was when we did the investigation is in terms of access to information through the ad libraries. So during the investigation, to estimate the cost of the ads, we could only rely on information that was given if the ad was categorized as a political or societal ad, where we would have some cost breakdown. Since then, we have some information that is added for more ad categories, including the targeting. And we noticed, for instance, that the ads that we have spotted today, most of these ads are targeting some older people. So these ads there, it's like 60, 65 plus that are mainly targeted. And when you look at the impressions and who actually saw it, you can see that it falls also into the demographic of older people. So getting access to more information about ad placement and who's paying for it and who's publishing it, that's more data points for us to investigate. So yes, definitely these changes in the ad libraries are welcome.
And as a follow-up, I also wonder, of course, if you know that this particular demographic is perhaps targeted and therefore might be considered more vulnerable to these types of scams and these types of ads. I think thinking not so much only on the research side, but then also on how can you actually make these results actionable. Of course, I can imagine that you also have some ideas on how these insights might support media literacy campaigns, for instance. So how, because you've contacted these institutions and so forth, but do you have any ideas on how, yeah, you could also maybe reach this specific demographic, then maybe to also, yeah, make them a bit more aware of these types of initiatives or these types of scams, and why these ads can be potentially harmful to them as well. I wonder if you have some thoughts on that.
Again, just let me reiterate that the targeting of the 65 plus demographic is something that we saw today by checking what was flying around on Facebook feeds, and we don't have any exhaustive coverage of the previous ads that we have identified in the investigation, because that information at the time was not available. So it will require some research to see what targeting looks like efficiently. As for your media literacy question, I feel that is more a question for entities, stakeholders, NGOs that deal with digital literacy in particular and media literacy. There are some common, assumptions that older people are easy targets that needs to be proven, and as to how to reach to them, there are people better suited than us to answer that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Guillaume, for answering these most urgent questions. I think so. I do not see any other open questions from the audience, so I just want to then again thank you as the main speaker. Thank you also, Amory, for answering some of the questions. And I think again, I would like to congratulate also you and your whole team on this very interesting project. And I would strongly recommend also the people watching this to take a look at all of the links that you shared. So to the actual investigation, to read up also on the results. And I would like to thank, of course, the audience for participating and for listening in to this lunch lecture. So I just want to remind everyone that the next lunch lecture will already take place next week. So that will be on the 14th of September. So it will explain how scientists can cope with negativity on social media. So it's again related to the question of how, as a researcher, you can deal with potential negative feedback on social media. So please take a look at our website for more details about that lecture. And with that, I would like to close this session. So once again, many thanks to our speakers and also to the audience for participating. And hopefully we'll see you for the next one as well. So have a nice day and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.